this is not just about Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre. This is about powerful men, plural, and vulnerable women.
We were just another toy to be passed around, and that's what they did.
The chickens are perhaps beginning to come home to roost as more and more evidence emerges of the extent to which he may have not just potentially been involved in.
Prince Andrew is back in the headlines, and the whispers coming out of Buckingham sound more like a cover-up than a comeback.
Maxwell woke her up that day saying, "Get out of bed, sleepyhead," and the whole idea was, we're going to have an amazing day.
After months of silence, new details are surfacing related to his ties with Jeffrey Epstein, and they're raising eyebrows from London to New York.
Quickly was told that she was going to meet a prince. This was a young woman who, as a tiny child, had loved the movie Cinderella, and the idea of meeting a prince was exciting to her.
What's the royal family hiding this time? And why does it feel like Andrew's name just won't stay buried? Let's find out. The royal walls are shaking again, and this time, Prince Andrew can't hide behind the palace gates. Just when the scandal seemed to be fading into silence, a bombshell memoir titled Nobody's Girl has exploded onto the scene, and it's already rocking the monarchy to its core. The book comes with a tragic twist. It's being published posthumously after author Virginia Giuffre, one of Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein's most outspoken accusers, was found dead by April. Now, her final words are speaking louder than ever.
One of the most prominent accusers of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has died. Virginia Giuffre dedicated her life trying to get Epstein and his enablers to face justice.
Inside the memoir, Giuffre recounts her encounters with the prince back in 2001, claiming the royals' own team later tried to hire internet trolls to harass her online when she took him to court. The revelation sent Nobody's Girl skyrocketing to the top of Amazon's charts, even before its release, and have reignited a storm of accusations Andrew can't seem to escape. At 65, the disgraced Duke is now scrambling to contain the fallout, even announcing he'll drop his royal titles in a desperate bid to protect what's left of the monarchy's image. But with Giuffre's book turning into a worldwide sensation, one thing's clear. The truth about Prince Andrew may finally be catching up to him.
Accusations against Prince Andrew have been around for many years now. It is the harrowing details, it is the blow-by-blow account that sends shivers down your spine.
Giuffre long alleged that she was recruited at age 16 by Epstein and Maxwell, who introduced her to Andrew in London in March 2001 when she was 17. She said she was forced to have sex with the royal on 3 separate occasions. She wrote that on the day she first met Andrew, Maxwell woke her up and told her it was going to be a special day, and that just like Cinderella, she will meet a handsome prince.
She was told that she was going to meet a prince. This was a young woman who, as a tiny child, had loved the movie Cinderella, and the idea of...
She said when they met, the prince told her that my daughters are just a little younger than you. She said Maxwell instructed her to do for him what you do for Jeffrey, adding, I knew better than to question her orders. She said that Epstein gave her $15,000 soon after for having sex with Andrew. Giuffre wrote that she had sex with the royal a second time at Epstein's house in New York about a month later, and a third time on Epstein's private island in the Caribbean, along with about 8 other girls who she said all appeared to be under 18.
That's the worst thing that I could have done, because I just let them know that I'm vulnerable and I'm their perfect.
Giuffre previously detailed how Epstein, Maxwell, and Andrew allegedly forced her to have sex with the prince against her will in a lawsuit that she filed New York in 2021. Andrew reached an out-of-court settlement with Giuffre in 2022 for an undisclosed sum. While he didn't admit wrongdoing, Andrew did acknowledge Giuffre's suffering as a victim of ST and agreed to make a donation to her charity.
It turned very simple, and it was abuse straight away from both of them. I got paid $200 and the butler drove me home.
Of that settlement, Giuffre wrote, after casting doubt on my credibility for so long, Prince Andrew's team had even gone so far as to try to hire internet trolls to hassle me. The Duke of York owed me a meaningful apology as well. We would never get a confession, of course. That's what settlements are designed to avoid, she added. But we were trying for the next best thing, a general acknowledgement of what I'd been through. Prince Andrew, once the Queen's proud favorite son, has now become the royal family's biggest scandal. After his disastrous 2019 BBC interview, where he tried and failed to explain away his ties with Jeffrey Epstein, the fallout was swift and brutal. His excuses were unbelievable, his denials awkward, and his tone completely detached from reality. He insisted he'd never even met Virginia Giuffre, despite that infamous photo of him with his arm around her waist. He claimed he had no memory of it, a line that only fueled more suspicion.
She describes the first time that she was meeting Prince Andrew being told, allegedly, in her words, by Maxwell, that today, like a Cinderella, she would meet her Prince Charming. And
Andrew also swore he'd cut off all contact with Epstein back in December 2010, but that story just fell apart. British tabloids recently leaked an alleged email from February 2011, months after his supposed cutoff, where the prince reportedly wrote to Epstein saying, "We're in this together," and that they'd have to rise above it. If true, that message flips the entire royal narrative on its head.
You want to become a real massage therapist, we can get you trained, you can come for the interview tonight, and if he likes you, then you'll be a real masseuse. And you'll get to see the world, and you'll get paid $200 per massage.
And it doesn't stop there. Reports have surfaced that around the same time, Andrew allegedly asked his own police bodyguard to dig into whether Giuffre had a criminal record, a move that sounds less like innocence and more like damage control. The palace has stayed silent, but one thing's clear. The prince's attempt to clear his name only made the scandal darker, messier, and a lot more royal than anyone expected. Buckingham Palace is in crisis mode again. And this time, the pressure is coming from both sides of the Atlantic. That photo, the one showing Prince Andrew with his arm around a teenage Virginia Giuffre while Ghislaine Maxwell lurks in the background, has become one of the most infamous images in royal history. It's the snapshot Buckingham Palace wishes had never existed. For years, the Duke's supporters have insisted it's a fake, a doctored image meant to destroy him. But for many, the picture is the proof, a haunting reminder of how deep his connection to Jeffrey Epstein's dark world really went. Giuffre has said she was pressured into sleeping with Andrew and that she wouldn't have dared object, claiming Epstein had enough power and connections to have her killed or abducted if she refused. The prince settled her civil lawsuit in February 2022 for an undisclosed amount, but without admitting guilt, another royal move meant to silence scandal rather than confront it.
This is a man who said that he wanted to play some more with a convicted international notorious paedophile. In what world is he able to keep those titles?
But the headlines didn't stop there. Court documents released in 2019 linked Andrew to another disturbing allegation. Johanna Schoberg, another Epstein victim, testified that the Duke groped her breast inside Epstein's Manhattan mansion while posing with his spitting image puppet. A grotesque twist straight out of a nightmare. And if that wasn't bizarre enough, an email later surfaced describing how a British man named Andy, yes, that Andy, was seen getting a foot massage from two Russian women at Epstein's New York home in 2010. By November 2019, Andrew was cornered.
We get caught up in the salaciousness of survivors naming names. So many people critiqued these girls for saying, they could have just left and they received money.
The BBC's Newsnight interview was supposed to be his moment of clarity, his royal defense. Instead, it turned into one of the biggest PR disasters in modern history. Sitting stiffly in Buckingham Palace, he claimed he'd met Epstein through Ghislaine Maxwell in 1999, a story that conveniently contradicted his own staff's version. He said he didn't regret the friendship because, in his words, it had been very useful. That tone alone was enough to make jaws drop. Then came the infamous Pizza Express defense. Andrew swore he couldn't have been with Giuffre on the night she claimed they had SX because he was at a Pizza Express in Woking with his daughter Beatrice, a line that instantly became tabloid legend. He also denied ever meeting Giuffre and said he had absolutely no memory of the now iconic photograph. He claimed he'd even had the image investigated for authenticity, but unsurprisingly, the results were inconclusive. He doubled down further, arguing that he'd never even been upstairs in Maxwell's London home, and that the outfit he was wearing in the photo couldn't be real because they were his traveling clothes, which he apparently didn't wear in the country. By the end of that interview, one thing was certain. Prince Andrew's credibility was gone, his royal future shattered, and the monarchy's clean image permanently stained by one of its own. And then came that moment, the one that made the entire world pause in disbelief. During his now infamous Newsnight interview, Prince Andrew tried to debunk Virginia Giuffre's claim that they had danced together at London's Tramp nightclub while he was sweating profusely. His excuse? He couldn't sweat, and not at the time anyway, because he had temporarily lost the ability to sweat after an adrenaline overdose during the Falklands War. Yes, you read that right. The prince claimed a medical condition stopped him from sweating, a statement so bizarre it instantly went viral. Medical experts quickly shut it down, telling the Times that an adrenaline overdose would cause more sweating, not less. Some even joked that his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, was also famously never seen sweating in public. But royal genetics hardly made his story more believable. Still, Andrew doubled down on his defense, admitting he stayed at Epstein's Manhattan mansion for 3 days in 2010, after Epstein's conviction for Essex crimes involving minors. His excuse? It was a convenient place to stay. He later said he kicked himself daily for it, but still framed himself as noble, claiming he'd gone only to end the friendship because it was the honorable and right thing to do.
Duke of York, he is no longer a member of the Order of Garter. He is still living in Windsor Lodge, the 30-bedroom palace on the Windsor estate.
Then came the infamous quote, Andrew calling himself too honorable. It instantly became a national punchline. And while he claimed he'd testify under oath if push came to shove, that moment never came. The sweat defense, the convenient stay, and the too honorable excuse stand as surreal reminders of a royal downfall so absurd it bordered on satire. When Emily Maitlis sat down with Prince Andrew for BBC's Newsnight, no one expected the royal disaster that followed. The BBC believed the Queen had approved the interview, but insiders later claimed she hadn't. Even Andrew's advisor tried to stop it and quit days before filming.
Vehemently denies any of the accusations against him. He says he's never even met Virginia Giuffre, but he did settle a civil lawsuit, reportedly for millions of dollars, with her.
Andrew, oblivious, thought it went brilliantly and even gave Maitlis a palace tour afterward, unaware he'd just triggered the biggest PR meltdown in royal history. When it aired, the backlash was instant. Prince Andrew, already exiled from royal duties and public life, might soon lose what's left of his royal identity. Lawmakers are now openly demanding that he be stripped of his dukedom and princely title for good, and even kicked out of his lavish. Andrew, oblivious, thought it went brilliantly and even gave Maitlis a palace tour afterward, unaware he'd just triggered the biggest PR meltdown in royal history. When it aired, the backlash was instant. Prince Andrew, already exiled from royal duties and public life, might soon lose what's left of his royal identity. Lawmakers are now openly demanding that he be stripped of his dukedom and princely title for good, and even kicked out of his lavish 30-room mansion near Windsor Castle. The backlash hit Parliament this week when members of the Scottish National Party officially filed a motion to remove his titles by law, a move that hasn't been seen in modern royal history. Conservative MP Robert Jenrick didn't hold back, declaring, "He has disgraced himself. He has embarrassed the royal family time and again." Across the pond, the outrage is just as fierce. Amy Wallace, the ghostwriter behind the explosive memoir tied to the Epstein saga, told the BBC that Andrew should stop hiding behind palace walls and testify in the U.S. about what he knew. She praised Virginia Giuffre for her courage, saying, "She deserves all credit for forcing Prince Andrew to relinquish more of his titles, and even more credit for standing up to say, 'This isn't right.'" And across the pond, the outrage is just as fierce. Amy Wallace, the ghostwriter behind the explosive memoir tied to the Epstein saga, told the BBC that Andrew should stop hiding behind palace walls and testify in the U.S. about what he knew. She praised Virginia Giuffre for her courage, saying, "She deserves all credit for forcing Prince Andrew to relinquish more of his titles, and even more credit for standing up to say, 'This isn't right.'" With mounting political pressure, public disgust, and royal silence, one question hangs in the air. Is this the beginning of the end for Prince Andrew's royal life, or just another desperate attempt to protect the crown's darkest secret? He may have dropped the title Duke of York, but for Prince Andrew's critics, that's far from enough. Buckingham Palace is once again under fire, and this time, the calls for action are deafening. After fresh revelations linking Andrew to Jeffrey Epstein resurfaced, the disgraced royal is facing a new wave of public outrage, political pressure, and royal embarrassment.
Salaciousness of survivors naming names. So many people critiqued these girls for saying, they could have just left and they received money.
Monarchy's reputation. But here's the catch. He still technically is the Duke of York. And as the son of Queen Elizabeth II, he still holds the title Prince. In other words, it's a royal rebrand, not a real reckoning. Critics aren't buying it. The timing of Andrew's so-called gesture is suspicious.
Opens its case following his death, but again decide not to investigate. This is also when Prince Andrew speaks with BBC Newsnight and denies having sex with or...
Andrew reportedly met with his brother, King Charles III, and agreed to stop using his dukedom, a last-ditch attempt to protect what's left of the monarchy's reputation. But here's the catch. He still technically is the Duke of York. And as the son of Queen Elizabeth II, he still holds the title Prince. In other words, it's a royal rebrand, not a real reckoning. Critics aren't buying it. The timing of Andrew's so-called gesture is suspicious, coming just days before the release of Virginia Giuffre's explosive posthumous memoir and the leak of emails showing Andrew kept in touch with Epstein long after he claimed to have cut ties.
Know that outfit and remember that infamous image from 2001 that was published across British tabloids, allegedly, again, of her.
Andrew's quiet retreat from royal life isn't redemption. It's damage control. And with the Epstein scandal still haunting Buckingham Palace, one question lingers. How much longer can the crown keep protecting the prince who won't stop dragging it through the mud? Prince Andrew has spent... Even Giuffre's brother, Sky Roberts, has spoken out, urging King Charles to go further. He shouldn't be able to call himself one, Roberts told the Times of London. For many, Andrew's quiet retreat from royal life isn't redemption. It's damage control. And with the Epstein scandal still haunting Buckingham Palace, one question lingers. How much longer can the crown keep protecting the prince who won't stop dragging it through the mud? Prince Andrew has spent years denying Virginia Giuffre's explosive claims, but his reputation has never recovered. After that infamous 2019 BBC interview where he tried to clear his name, the damage was instant and global. What was meant to be his redemption turned into royal humiliation. Viewers saw a man who seemed detached, defensive, and disturbingly tone-deaf. An entitled prince with zero empathy for Epstein's victims and even less credibility in his excuses.
A brief statement was issued by the palace, well, by Prince Andrew, where he says, in discussion with the king and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the
Didn't begin there. His connection to Epstein had been haunting him for over a decade. Back in 2011, BBC News reported that his friendship with the convicted Essex offender was generating a...
It is that this was happening around the world. Wherever Andrew went, there were young women who were being served up to him.
By 2022, Andrew quietly settled Giuffre's civil lawsuit in New York for millions of dollars. Without admitting guilt but acknowledging her suffering as a victim of ST, it was the closest thing to an apology the world would ever get from him. But Andrew's downfall didn't begin there. His connection to Epstein had been haunting him for over a decade. Back in 2011, BBC News reported that his friendship with the convicted Essex offender was generating a steady stream of criticism. The outrage only grew when his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, admitted that Epstein had paid off £15,000 of her debts and publicly declared that he'd cut all ties with Epstein. But in 2014, things took a darker turn. A Florida court filing accused Andrew with Andrew's help. And just when the palace hoped the scandal might fade, photos surfaced of Andrew casually walking with Epstein in Central Park in 2010, after Epstein's conviction. It was the image that shattered his royal credibility. By July 2011, he was stripped of his role as trade envoy and publicly declared that he'd cut all ties with Epstein. But in 2014, things took a darker turn. A Florida court filing accused Andrew of being one of several powerful men who engaged in SL activities with a minor, Virginia Giuffre. She claimed Epstein trafficked her for SX and paid her $15,000 after an encounter with the prince in London when she was just 17. Flight logs even confirmed that Andrew and Giuffre were in the same places at the same times she alleged the ALTs occurred, in London, New York, and Epstein's private island. Andrew has denied it all from day one, but between the photo, the payout, and the palace silence, the world isn't convinced. To many, he's no longer His Royal Highness. He's the prince who brought scandal to the crown and shame to the throne.
because of just how young she says she was at the time. She even recalls that Prince Andrew was asked to guess her age during this first meeting, during this initial meeting, and that he accurately described it as 17 years old. And I want to read you an excerpt from the book here as to what happened in that conversation next, according to her. "My daughters are just a little younger than you," he told me, explaining his accuracy.
Grotesque mismatch between his arrogance and Epstein's crimes. Days later, Buckingham Palace announced Andrew would step back from public duties for the foreseeable future. In one disastrous interview, he went from royal privilege to royal pariah, and the monarchy's been cleaning up ever since. But critics called it a car crash and nuclear explosion. MP Hannah Bardell slammed Andrew for showing no remorse, while The Guardian called it a grotesque mismatch between his arrogance and Epstein's crimes. Days later, Buckingham Palace announced Andrew would step back from public duties for the foreseeable future. In one disastrous interview, he went from royal privilege to royal pariah, and the monarchy's been cleaning up ever since. By 2020, Prince Andrew's royal downfall had turned into an international scandal, and the walls were closing in fast. U.S. prosecutors were trying to get answers about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, but according to U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman, the Duke of York had offered zero cooperation. This despite his public promise during the Newsnight interview that he'd help authorities if push came to shove. Spoiler alert, it never did.
He is still Prince Andrew. But undoubtedly, this mega statement came because of the impending publication of the new book.
Soon after, the ripple effects reached his charitable empire. The Duke of York Young Champions trophy was quietly scrapped, and all operations under the Prince Andrew Charitable Trust were halted. Then came the kicker. The trust itself fell under investigation by the UK Charity Commission for suspicious payments totaling £350,000 to his former private secretary Amanda Thirsk. Behind palace walls, even the military wanted nothing more to do with him. Senior figures in the British Army and Royal Navy reportedly saw Andrew as a full-blown embarrassment, a man whose presence tarnished every uniform he'd ever worn. The Times claimed there were growing calls to strip him of his honorary military roles, while Newsweek polls showed the British public wanted him not only stripped of his titles but extradited to the U.S. by May 2020. The message was clear. Andrew was finished. He officially stepped down from all remaining public roles, permanently. No more royal duties, no more photo ops, no more His Royal Highness. But the story didn't end there. In 2021, Virginia Giuffre's lawyer, Sigrid McCauley, publicly stated that Andrew's Newsnight interview would actually strengthen their legal case, calling it a gift on camera. Every awkward denial, every bizarre excuse, every misplaced smile became part of the evidence. Then came the latest bombshell. Leaked reports from October 2025 revealed a damning email allegedly sent by Andrew to Epstein back in February 2011. The one where he wrote, "We are in this together, and we'll have to rise above it." For a man who swore he'd cut ties with Epstein and had nothing to hide, those words hit like a royal confession. And now, as new details keep emerging, it seems the prince's past isn't done haunting him, not by a long shot. That's it for today. See you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.